and we can solve more easily the problems that politicians that have other views.
When a man has such immense wealth, the possibilities are endless. He can travel the world and have luxury at will. He can even live in a world that only exists in people's imaginations. Yet this billionaire seems not to be interested in such frivolities. Carlos Slim chose a life rid of extravagance. Is he being frugal? Perhaps he hasn't learned how to enjoy the luxury he grew up in. Or does he need a lecture on how to do it? Maybe he's a man who loves to savor things with higher meaning. Is that why he lives like he's poor? Let's discover the secret behind Carlos Slim and how he spends his millions. Stay tuned. Inside Carlos Slim's life. Carlos Slim has always been a man of great feat. It's little wonder how he's turned whatever he touches into real value. He is not just a billionaire, but has stuck with a strategy for decades unending. What does Carlos do for a living? Try to imagine this. What if you could own the largest construction company, be a cell phone provider, and have many stakes in the companies in your country? You'd be a genius. Well, that's the man Carlos Slim. Aside from inheriting riches from his family business, Carlos is a great businessman who has spent years making marks that his competitors have struggled to match up for decades. In 1966, when Carlos was 26 years old, he had convertibles worth $40 million from his investments and family wealth. However, did Carlos make it to the richest man in the world? At this rate, it was only a matter of time. He was a business opportunist who accumulated assets from Mexico's dwindling economy in the 90s. With the economic crash, the decline in oil prices, and the peso losing value, smart men like Carlos bought many companies from those who couldn't handle the heat of a failing economy amid Mexico's debt crisis. These companies had to sell at low prices as investors fled the country. One such company was the Sanborn chain of stores. The country's second-largest cigarette maker, Cigatom, also backed out of the game at a depressed valuation. Carlos acquired an interest in mining, tobacco, and copper. He thought he could get more companies, so he acquired the restaurant and chain of stores from Sanborn Hermanos. Carlos Slim is also a political individual. He might not be running for president, but his affiliations with strong political figures in Mexico earned him favors in establishing his conglomerate. One such alliance was his relationship with President Carlos Salinas de Gortari and the ruling Institutional Revolutionary Party in the 1980s. 10 years later, his ties with the ruling president paid off as Gortari privatized the ownership of Telmex, a telephone network previously owned by the government. His purchase of Telmex was the beginning of his success, anchored on his father's wealth. He partnered with Southwestern Bell Corporation and Telecoms to purchase Telmex at $1.76 billion from the government. Issues between Carlos and France Telecoms made him fight for management control of Telmex. France Telecoms later withdrew from the joint ownership, leaving Carlos in business with Southwestern Bell Corporation. His move into telecommunications gave him grounds for the American market. He began partnerships with top communication companies like Prodigy Inc. and Southwestern Bell Corporation. America Mobile, a mobile telephone division, was branched from Telmex in 2011. The company shut up quickly and became one of the leading telecommunication brands globally. At age 25, Carlos put his civil engineering degree to use by starting a construction company, Inmobiliaria Carso, which he later renamed Inversora Carso in 2016. He also became a manufacturer of wire and fiber optic cables. Slowly, he took over and became a household name in Mexico. His company, Grupo Carso, had eyes for many companies in Mexico. Slim wanted a piece of their cake. Sometimes, he bought the entire bakery to have the cake all to himself. In an interview, Carlos joked that he's lost count of the companies they've acquired. He purchased interests in energy, insurance, publishing, and finance through his company, Grupo Carso. All the businesses he bought and invested in became the frontier of Grupo Carso and his rise to fame. Carlos is an entrepreneur who wouldn't miss out on a business prospect. He didn't care about the details like he did the monetary value of the companies he bought. The thought of getting gains was enough for him to purchase a venture. Such drive earned him stakes as the major shareholder in the New York Times Company, for which he later sold half his shares for $250 million in 2017. However, he didn't succeed in every business attempt. Like many other businessmen, he has also had failures and made wrong judgments about some assets acquired. In the year 2000, Carlos purchased a badly surviving company on electronics products and services. It took him a while to realize that he overestimated his wits to get the company on its feet. However, when Carlos saw it would be a dead end with no profits, he sold it in 2007. These down moments didn't stop Carlos from making bold business strides. In 2017, America Móvil launched a Spanish television network. Its target was to entertain its Mexican-American audience. With such immense wealth, did Carlos Slim ever take a break from making more money? The answer is an obvious no. Before we look at his multi-billionaire status and why he lives like a poor man, let's take a few steps back to his early life. Perhaps his upbringing might have influenced his frugal lifestyle. Who is Carlos Slim? On the 28th of January 1940, Carlos Slim Helou was born in Mexico to Lebanese parents who were immigrants seeking shelter in Mexico. His parents had strong Christian roots, and Carlos was raised that way. His father, Julian Slim Haddad, wasn't just a Christian immigrant, he had an eye for business, an enterprise that grew into a conglomerate, setting the path for Carlos, his son. After his father and mother, Linda Helou Atta, took the bold step to live in Mexico in 1902, they escaped Julian being enlisted into the Ottoman army. Looking back now, you'd say it was worth it. Mexico is a community with roots in commerce, so Julian quickly learned the ropes by opening a dry goods store. His decision in 2011 birthed a company worth $100,000 within 10 years. Julian was a wise businessman who knew how to keep the money flow. He quickly invested in buying real estate in Mexico City. He sold most of his properties for less than they were worth, as Mexico faced a revolution between 1910 and 1920. Julian's portfolio as a businessman in retail and wholesale, alongside his numerous real estate ventures, made him wealthy. At the time, Julian was worth over 1 million pesos in Mexico. Carlos had much to learn from his father, but sadly, life happened. Julian passed away when Carlos was 13. By then, Carlos had already taken an interest in the family business and was determined to keep Julian's legacy. With that in mind, he thrived for knowledge. He took a lesson on management to learn the family business. Before his father passed, he took his advice on how to read financial statements. He learned how to keep accurate financial records. Today, Carlos explores these skills in building his father's legacy and empire. After high school, he studied civil engineering at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. As he focused on a degree while managing the family company, Carlos also taught algebra and linear programming lessons. His strive for knowledge got him into economics after he graduated in 1961. As Slim continued building the family business, he spent many years studying finance and becoming a stock trader. In 1965, Carlos established his brokerage firm, Inversora Bursátil, the wealth of a great man. Carlos Slim is a risk-taker. His quick action to business prospects has earned him billions over the years. As the government groveled with foreign debts after the economic crash in 1982, a new billionaire was born in that same country. While the economy scared away business investors, Slim saw a positive signal in the same ventures. He purchased, identified their challenges, and provided resources for effective management. It was Carlos Slim's forte to buy, reinvest, and sell these companies at a higher value. He is now the executive of Latin America's largest mobile phone operator. His company is based in Mexico and generated an annual revenue of $46 in 2023. Carlos's fortune comes from his shares in banks and energy companies. However, America Móvil is his largest money-producing machine. He was the richest man in the world from 2010 to 2013. According to Forbes, he dropped out and became the second richest man in the world in 2015. He fell to fourth place by 2016 because of his massive loss in dollars. He ranked sixth on the Forbes Billionaires list of 2017. And currently, Carlos Slim sits at number 14 on the Forbes list of the richest men in the world. The list was released in 2024 annual reviews of powerful men globally. Some people have made comparisons between Slim's fortune and Bill Gates. They might not be wrong. However, their wealth is built on different pedestals. While Bill focused on creating an empire from great technological inventions, Carlos was an all-rounder. He built his conglomerate by acquiring stakes in nearly all sectors. According to Bloomberg data, Carlos has received over $20 billion in dividends from his investments. This data took account of his cash investments after evaluating his real estate transactions, charity gifts, taxes, and the market performance of his stocks. By October 2024, Forbes reported Carlos's wealth to round up at $86.7 billion. Slim's telecom empire reaches into almost every country in Latin America. Do you know América Móvil isn't just in Mexico? Slim's Telecoms is making waves in other parts of the world through its secondary firms. It owns shares in Telekom Austria. Carlos Slim might not have a profound knowledge of technology or telecommunications. However, he understands the economic market. His principle of purchasing and reinvesting in his companies is the strategy of the conglomerate you see today. Despite being business-oriented, Carlos knows how important love and family are, so he also has a love life and family. Let's look into that: marriage, children, and family. In 1967, Carlos decided to focus on love. He married his lover, Sumaya Domit, and they built a beautiful family together. Between that year and 1999, they had 6 children. They had 3 sons, Carlos Domit, Patrick, and Marco, and 3 daughters, Vanessa, Johanna, and Sumaya, named after her mother. They enjoyed a loving home until Sumaya's health complications in 1999. She passed away at 51, and since then, Carlos chose to honor her by not remarrying. Carlos's children have played major roles in spearheading his empire. His first son holds 7 positions at various companies. He also served as vice chairman of Grupo Carso and is recognized for his outstanding contributions. Patrick Slim Dormit is the chief executive officer of Grupo Sanborns and vice chairman of the executive committee of América Móvil and Grupo Carso. One of Slim's daughters, Vanessa, holds a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering from Universidad Anahuac, Mexico. She is also a member of the board of directors of América Móvil and Grupo Carso. Beyond her executive roles in the family business, Vanessa has carved a name for herself. She emulated her mother's generosity, and many recognize her commitment to giving back to society. Despite the pressure of growing up in a wealthy home, her identity stands out. She is a calm woman who understands her role and delivers with excellence. Carlos Slim is a cultural man who values family, especially after his wife's demise. He is not the only one doing extraordinary things. His children have followed in his footsteps and even dared to challenge their father's status quo. He also has grandchildren, Emiliano Slim Taruco, Carlos Slim Taruco, and Marielle Slim, who are growing up to take over the family business or chase individual interests one day. Now, let's look into this billionaire's art of spending his billions. The billionaire with a frugal lifestyle. Carlos is not into luxurious cars, houses, or extravagant items. However, he does not hold back on his investments in real estate. The billionaire owns 20 shopping centers in Mexico, 10 of which are in Mexico City. Another notable real estate purchase is the Duke Simon Mansion. Carlos acquired the building at $44 million in 2010. This mansion is unique because of its location. It was reportedly one of the last private residences on Fifth Avenue in New York City. In 2015, he put it up for sale at $80 million, but took it off the market in 2016 when he couldn't get a buyer. However, Carlos placed the house back on sale in 2023. He also purchased 2 commercial buildings in the United States in 2015, the Marquette Building in Detroit, and the PepsiCo Inc. Americas Beverages headquarters just north of New York City. Slim's company office, which he built, is a wonder to behold for one man. Grupo Carso's main complex headquarters in Mexico City, Plaza Carso, includes the Museo Sumaya, Museo Chumex, the Plaza Carso Shopping Center, 3 residential towers, and 3 commercial office buildings. It was completed at an estimated cost of over $800 million. In his later life, Carlos picked his late father, Julian's interest in real estate. Another way he shows his philanthropy is through a hidden passion for art. Carlos has a unique interest in artwork. No wonder he's a collector of great, pricey pieces with monumental value across the work. Do you want to know where a billionaire would keep his collection? He didn't create an underground building in his home. Carlos Slim opened a nonprofit art museum in 1994. However, In 2011, he changed the museum's location to a much larger space in the city, with a unique architectural design. The anvil-shaped structure is a tourist attraction designed by Carlos's son-in-law. Fernando Romero designed the interior to cover 17,000 square meters of exhibition space. The aluminum hexagon building is a sight to behold in Mexico City. His wife, Sumaya, loved collecting art pieces, so Carlos continued her legacy after her demise. He built the Museo Sumaya in honor of her. It was reported that Museo Sumaya could house over 70,000 pieces. The center is Slim's personal art collections, including the largest collection of Rodin art outside of France and a host of masterpieces by Renoir, Picasso, Van Gogh, Monet, and Dali. Many historic artworks have found a home in Slim's museum. His collections have been reported to be worth over millions of dollars. Carlos was also credited for reviving the ailing Mexico City's historic center. It's another way Slim gives back to the society he grew up in. One of the prominent ways he has invested in social stability was through the Carlos Slim Foundation. In 1986, Carlos established the foundation to give better opportunities to Latin Americans. The scheme was to improve the quality of life for the population limited to such means. He established this charity organization focusing on education, healthcare, research, and sports. Carlos hasn't been oblivious to the public health issues in Mexico. A branch of the foundation, the Carlos Slim Institute of Health, funds many projects, including major contributions during COVID-19 pandemic. The foundations have also welcomed partnerships with others who want to join their courses. Slim is a visionary who hopes to improve Mexican nationals' healthcare and living conditions. He worked with another nonprofit foundation, Grameen Trust, established by Muhammad Yunus. Grameen Trust is a product of a Grameen Bangladesh bank, with its record of giving microloans to individuals below the poverty margin. The partnership resulted in the Grameen Carso Microcredit Initiative for Mexicans. Carlos Slim was recognized for his efforts in conversing with the cultural heritage of monumental buildings in Mexico City. The World Monument Fund gave him the Hadrian Award in 2004. He has received several other awards throughout his lifetime. As a benevolent father, Slim has always carried his children along his business adventures. He has also transferred some of his shares between his children. However, Carlos Slim remains credited for all assets because he is the frontman of this enviable conglomerate. Carlos Slim made a $1 billion oil investment in 2024. He believes in growing and producing crude oil as the demand for fossil fuels stays on the high side. How can one man gain this much ground? For years, Slim has latched on to many businesses. For an individual, do you think Carlos is taking too much? Perhaps the government is threatened by his growing enterprise influence. Is that why they tried to stop him? The government versus the billionaire. The monopoly Carlos has over many companies in Mexico does not excite the government. Among other ventures, being the primary cell phone provider and construction company gives Carlos many rights over managing the market, even with biting government rules. He also never has to worry about competition, as he is the big dog in the game. For years, this has been Mexico's plight with Slim's monopoly of major business ventures. His corporate family company, Grupo Carso, gave him stakes in almost every business sector in Mexico. Carlos has shares in cement, automotive, and mining enterprises, real estate, and other industries in Mexico and others worldwide. What's left? Carlos is taking over without opposition. It is an easy game for him. If a business or arm of government property is struggling, he steps in to purchase or invest in hopes that he could later receive returns on his investments, either by selling out or major holdings with the companies involved. It isn't a bad idea, except that it's been Slim's mode of operation. It's one major way he's gathered wealth over the years, with Movil, formerly Telmex, owned by the government. Grupo Carso controls the companies they purchase or invest in, making it difficult for the government to influence their decisions. The government has made several attempts to stop Carlos from this monopoly. However, he is within his rights as a citizen and businessman in Mexico. Let's see the attempts the government has made so far. Some laws reduce the share of Latin America's largest telecoms provider, América Móvil. It demanded that the conglomerate venture make its shares available for Mexicans to purchase in the wireless market. Carlos provided many products and dominated the market. It simply meant that his company could exert as much power and control as it would over the products it provided. The government tried to limit Carlos's legal privilege over the telecommunications sector. They tried to encourage the other competitors in the phone business, but Slim still had a monopoly, as all new companies had to pay an interconnection fee to Telmex. He didn't make it easy for his competitors. His company increased the fees to frustrate them. Carlos later sat down with the government and reached a fair bargain. However, a businessman like him knew always to keep the upper hand. Even when anti-monopoly laws forced Slim's company to sell its assets, they always found a back end within the Constitution. Slim's company still had a freer hand. Slim's telecom's critics and competitors were unhappy with how tight-fisted he was with Telmex. They expressed their displeasure with the billionaire's hold on large market shares. They said Mexico's economy takes the heat as Slim's monopoly keeps out competition without opening the door for new companies to rival the major brands he owns. Over the years, the weak Mexican economy and regulations have fought Slim's businesses. He's taken many losses to this effect. The government capitalized on Carlos's near monopolization with special laws that coerced his major holdings, América Móvil, to pamper and tend to the needs of its competitors in telecommunications. In 2004, Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto signed a law to help the growth of new competition in the telecom field. Carlos's América Móvil gave free use of the company's networks to its smaller competitors. Slim couldn't charge them as they did initially. He reported that the regulations forced his telecoms company to subsidize its competitors. Carlos went to court as the laws didn't sit well with the company. Mexico's Supreme Court ruled in favor of América Móvil on August 2017. It said it was unconstitutional for other companies to get free access to their competition. However, it did not support the extended payment of fees beyond the stipulated time to Slim's company. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development reported that América Móvil held 65% of the Mexican wireless market and 72% of mobile broadband in 2016. It's easy to see why the government keeps a close tab on Slim's ventures. The government's regulations have given new companies like AT&T visibility. They spent billions to compete with América Móvil. And at the end of 2023, América Móvil's share of wireless was 64%. Slim's competition might be up to something. We will have to wait and see if they get past the hurdles to face their telecommunications rivals.
But I think that the renegotiation can be for the best for both.
The public has always perceived the billionaire to be at loggerheads with Donald Trump, the current president of America. In 2015, Carlos called out Trump for his racial comments on Mexican immigrants in the United States. He also criticized Trump for standing on his word to build a wall along the United States-Mexico border. Donald Trump had said the U.S. would pull out of NAFTA. The North American Free Trade Agreement enabled ease in the Mexicans' importation and exportation of each country's products. With Donald as president in 2016, the trade relationship between the two countries was at stake. It was no surprise when a crucial meeting was set up between Carlos and Trump after his election. Carlos stressed that America's investments and input in growing Mexico's economy would prevent immigrants in ways that Trump's physical wall could not. Their discussion yielded results as the U.S. president hushed down his threats. However, there is fear that the wall might stand with Trump as the newly elected president of America in 2025.
I will be more worried if I were an American.
You'd be more worried as an American than as a Mexican?
Yes.
He has also made new claims to raise the walls at the Mexican borders. In an interview, Carlos said pulling out of NAFTA was not the solution, as inflation would affect Americans. He said citizens would face bad economic times, as costs would be high. Carlos advised Donald Trump to renegotiate the trade agreement between Mexico and America. In his predictions about Trump's push to sign out of the trade deal, Carlos said he's more concerned about America's economy than Mexico.
The cost for the American people will be too high. The consumers will pay too much for everything. And I don't think that 300 million people will be happy.
Carlos didn't build his empire in a day. It was one brick at a time. What can you say about the way Carlos spends his money? Will his feud with Donald end soon? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.